Hey everyone, it is Leah. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 80 of #History. Before the episode gets started, I did just want to do a little disclaimer here. The episode was conducted via a Zoom call, and as you can imagine, and as you will likely hear, the audio isn't perfect because of that. So just thank you so much for your understanding, for tuning in, and hopefully you enjoy this very special episode with our special guests.
This is #History episode 80. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And I cannot believe we are on episode 80. That's kind of blowing my mind right now. Yeah. I'll be honest that some days it definitely feels like it. We've for sure done 80 episodes. But most days I just can't believe how quickly this whole journey has flown by. It's been so much fun.
I agree. I was just realizing the other day that the Disneyland, we did a history of Disneyland episode, was season 3. That was episode 30 something.
That's insane.
Dumb and crazy.
It's dumb and crazy.
One of the best parts of this journey through podcasting has been meeting so many amazing fellow podcasters.
Speaking of which, we are so ecstatic to announce that we have Caitlin and Sarah from Luminol podcast on the show today. Welcome to both of you.
Welcome.
Hello. We are super happy to be here.
What did the pirate say on his birthday?
It's
what did he say?
I'm 80. I'm 80.
That's how you're going to introduce yourself, Sarah. Wow.
It's their 80th episode.
Sarah doesn't speak for because it's 80th episode.
You didn't even get it.
I was going to make fun of you, but now it makes sense.
I understood.
Now that it's relevant, it makes sense.
She thought I just came out of the wagon. It's like wheeling bad jokes that were relevant.
I did.
Yeah, if I hadn't caught on to that, I've been like, okay, recording is now ending. This is weird.
And Sarah's not invited back.
Okay, so before we turn the mic over to you two to do your own introductions and share about your podcast with our listeners, we wanted to do our own little introduction to you.
Yes. So our little introduction to Luminol podcast is that we are obsessed with you. You know that we're wearing our adorable Hop Girls summer shirts that you helped to design. We're part of your Patreon, and we listen to every episode every week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you.
That's like too much.
I'm blushing and
No, we love you guys.
Well, thank you. We love you too. And it's been so fun getting to know you. Even though for everyone listening, we're on a Zoom call, which is super weird. Caitlin's the only one who didn't wear Luminol merchandise, not to call out anyone specifically.
but I'm going to name her.
We'll name her in the front. But no, it's been really, really fun, getting to know both of you and actually seeing, we were just talking about this before the show opened. It feels like we already know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. We're also just super excited to finally have the chance to meet you because you have been such huge supporters of our podcast. So thank you. You did our little I'm not throwing away our shot Hamilton Instagram video that we did a while back. And you've given us shout outs on your podcast and played our promo on there. So just thank you so much.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Thank you too.
Thanks for having us.
And then finally, before I officially turn it over to both of you to actually finally introduce yourselves, I just wanted to say for our listeners that one of the primary reasons why we love Luminol podcast so much is because you guys cover really heavy topics. But I'm always so impressed with how compassionate and open-minded and sensitive you are with them. I'm always impressed with how you handle the topics. And that's actually what initially kept me personally coming back every week. Okay, now that I've blabbed, Caitlin and Sarah, can you introduce yourselves officially to our listeners? Tell them what your podcast is all about and where they can find you.
Yeah. First of all, I'm blown away by the comments you guys have for us. We started Luminol podcast just over 2 years ago, and we got a lot of inspiration from My Favorite Murder. We're kind of like them in the way that every episode we each talk about a case, some of the big differences, and we throw some comedy in because we think we're funny.
That pirate joke was pretty great.
Killer.
That's the proof. The proof is in the pudding.
We choose a different theme for every episode, and we have made it kind of our mission and our goal to find cases that don't have a lot of coverage. So one thing we do is we find a case that fits a theme, and we'll both go on and find out if it's been covered by a bunch of other pods. Our goal is to, not focus on the Ted Bundys and the Ed Gaines, and to focus on the victims and unsolved cases or missing persons, people who deserve to have their story told. So that's what we try to do. And we try to lighten it up with some humor because it is very heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we also make it a point to never make jokes at the expense of victims. That's absolutely important to us. And also the expense of victims' families, the expense of perpetrators' families, the perpetrators' loved ones. Those are all such difficult positions to be in as just in your life. And so we never want to make somebody feel like we didn't do them justice or we weren't kind to them. Kindness is a big part of our podcast, trying to understand everybody's walk of life. Another thing that we don't mention this on our podcast, and I don't think we really talk about it at all, is we also try to prioritize minority cases or cases in really small towns, because those are very often not represented at all, or even misrepresented. We found a lot of the time due to different stereotypes and social structures. And so those are all things that are important to us. So that's Luminol. There are funny bits. We tell dad jokes at the end. We have a beer.
Yeah.
Beer's become like a bigger thing than we thought it would. We just like beer. Like that's all. But it's a whole thing. That's part of the podcast now. We try 2 different beers every episode. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, you both do a fabulous job.
Thank you. Also, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Caitlin.
I'm Sarah. So now you know.
The best part about my favorite thing is I cuss a lot on our podcast, but I have been able to blame it on Sarah so much that sometimes people are like, Sarah, she cusses a lot. Like it's work. So that's one of my favorite things.
So you shouldn't have used your names there when you introduced yourselves. Just let people guess who the voices are.
Truly.
Well, given that Luminol is obviously a true crime podcast and #history is obviously a history podcast, we wanted to create a mesh of the 2 topics in this week's season 8 finale collaboration episode. We are so excited to talk this week about the case of Etan Patz, which that pronunciation is coming from the Charlie Project. We have seen in other places it pronounced Etan Patz, but we're going to go with the Charlie Project's pronunciation. Again, so this case is of Etan Patz. He was a 6-year-old boy who went missing in 1979 as he was walking to his school bus. It wouldn't be until several decades later that his murderer would be apprehended and tried for his crimes.
So obviously all of our listeners here get the true crime element of this case, right? Disappearance, abduction, murder. But there's also a large historical element to this case because what many people don't realize is that this was the case that launched the Milk Carton Campaigns of the early 1980s, in which images of missing persons were placed on the sides of milk cartons. It was also this case that led to the establishment of the National Missing Children's Day and even laid the foundation for Amber Alerts, which we are all very familiar with today. But we'll get into all of that a bit later.
So we're super looking forward to diving into this case and the legacy of it and the history surrounding it. But first, I think we have something else we need to dive into.
Yes.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is #history,
the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
So because this topic is rather dark, I had a wee bit of trouble finding one to fit, but I finally just came to the decision to go with a very sweet, simple cocktail. It's called the New York Lemonade. Since this story took place primarily in New York, that's where the inspiration came from. I have nothing else for you all. Sorry. No cute historical background on it or anything. So this cocktail contains an ounce of Grand Marnier or similar orange liqueur, 2 ounces of vodka or citrus vodka, an ounce of club soda, 2 ounces of fresh lemon juice, which equates to about 2 lemons. And then you serve in a cold cocktail glass, garnished with a lemon wheel, which I didn't do because Lazy.
Me neither.
And
Same.
that's
Samesies.
that's that. Let's drink it, and then we should all give our rating. That's generally what we like to do here at Hashtag History.
Cheers.
Oh, I actually really like that.
Ooh,
Wow.
Very
very
lemony.
tart, which I would expect because there's 2 full ounces of lemon juice in it.
Yeah.
This tastes like I just cut the grass and now I get to lay by the pool as a reward.
Mm.
I'm going to piggyback off of that this tastes like a sunburn, right? this is I would be sunburned while drinking something like this.
Yeah.
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 It started out nice and then I stayed out there too long.
Yeah.
You might have like
kind
an outline of a book where you were reading on your legs.
Yeah.
It kind of tastes like the spiked version of, those like $15 lemonades that you get at the state fair that are like this big.
Like a
and it costs
Mike's
you.
Hard lemonade or something.
Yep.
I feel like if you like a Mike's Hard or if you like a lemon drop shot, you would like this.
Or if you like a whiskey sour, you'd probably like this.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a vodka person, but it's got whiskey sour vibe.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say though, like I went to Total Wine, which is our liquor store we always go to. And you guys, I made a mistake. I bought cucumber vodka because I thought the picture of the cucumber was a freaking lime. It's a cucumber. We didn't put it in it. I didn't know. No. And so I used my vodka for my honeymoon.
Yeah. I just used regular vodka. It's fine.
Now I have
That's
this nasty ass
amazing.
cucumber one. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. That sounds gross.
All right. Rating. Our rating system is 1 to 10, 10 being the highest.
Is 10 like the best cocktail you've ever had or like your highest hopes for this one?
We generally do it as like best cocktail we've ever had, I feel like. Yeah.
This is at least a 6.5 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I'm going to go with a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
I'd have it again. Not blowing my socks off.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. I'll go. I'm gonna go with an 8. Shockingly,
Whoa.
I love sour cocktails, which I don't like sour beers, but like pour a ton of lemon in it any day. I could drink one every night. Like I love sour cocktails.
Yeah, I feel like I guess I'm going to have to say 6.52 because same exact thing. I like it. I would totally have it again. I will not. I was going to say I will not remember this tomorrow. That's not because I'm going to drink it so hard that I won't remember tomorrow, but that it's not standing out to me is what I mean. It's not memorable is what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. So really ending the season, really great, high rated cocktail. That's a lie.
Yeah, on a sour note.
we're ending on a sour note. Yeah.
We're ending on a sour note.
Okay, so of course, Caitlin and Sarah are the true crime experts here. So we're going to have them cover all the actual details of this case. I intentionally didn't look it up beforehand. I know nothing about it. So I'm super looking forward to learning from both of you. But prior to handing it over to them to do that, we wanted to do a brief history on the Milk Carton Campaign and how and why the United States started placing missing children's pictures on them. Prior to the case we are going to be talking about today, there wasn't a uniform way to respond to missing children's cases. In fact, most police departments prior to the 1980s didn't even provide training on how to respond to missing children's cases, which is just terrifying. Even more terrifying, if that's possible, is that in the early 1980s, many police departments still maintained the practice of waiting 24 to 72 hours before you could file a missing persons report. I actually, I listened to the episode that you two dropped today, and I feel like there was something similar to that, right? Where there was a child that was missing and they couldn't report it for 24 hours or whatever it was.
Call back later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Like, give me a ring tonight or tomorrow. Like too soon.
And wasn't that
Just too soon.
That one was also in the 80s? The case that you guys covered?
Yeah, 84, I think.
Anthony.
Ugh.
How do you say his last name? Yeah.
Mark, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The lack of information and data and training and research in this regard is actually very well represented in this episode because in all of my research, I found almost no information. I wanted to provide a historical perspective on how missing children's cases were handled prior to the early 1980s, but there's just simply no succinct information about this. What we do know, though, is that things did start to change following two missing children's cases in 1982 and 1984. On September 5th, 1982, 12-year-old Johnny Gosch of Iowa left his house around 5:45 a.m. to deliver the Sunday morning paper, which can we just reflect on that for a moment? A 12-year-old waking up at 5:45 on a Sunday morning to work. It's like the 80s were wild.
Yeah, like
the 80s were wild.
I almost did a paper route when I was in like early high, maybe late middle school, early high school.
Really?
And yeah, you had to wake up at like 5. Yeah. I didn't do it.
Thought about it. Didn't want to do it.
No.
Well, a couple hours later, after, he leaves for his paper route, an annoyed customer called the Gosch family home to ask where his morning paper was because Johnny hadn't come by to deliver it yet. Johnny's father went to look for him and found his red wagon still full of newspapers on its own along his route. They immediately called the police and reported their son missing. Johnny Gosch's case was grossly mishandled, with the police not even arriving at the Gosch home until 45 minutes after the call, and explained to the family that they did not consider Johnny to be in any danger and speculated as to whether the boy had simply run away. And then the case went cold. Only 2 years later, on August 12th, 1984, a second paper boy, 13-year-old Eugene Martin, also went missing in Iowa. About an hour after he began his paper route, a customer called into the route manager to complain about having not received her morning paper yet, which again, can we just talk about the 80s a little bit here? Like these people and their newspapers, right? It's like within the hour, if they don't receive it, they're calling and complaining.
They got their news. Like that's probably how they decided what they were going to wear for the day because the weather was in there. Like,
well, and I was equating it to Amazon Prime, where like if it takes any more than like 1.5 days to get to me, I'm checking the tracking every 6 seconds. So I can relate, but also not.
But it's also like your Wi-Fi being down. If it's down for an hour and you can't check your stuff, I'm calling the cable people.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason
totally right.
Wi-Fi's down for an hour.
Yep. This route manager, gets this complaint, goes out to check what was going on, and found Martin's delivery bag with the newspaper still inside on the ground along his route. The route manager went to the Martin family, who then called the police department. Seeing how much the Gosch case had been botched 2 years prior, the police department certainly responded differently to the Martin case. They put several officers on the case, they sent out flyers, and they scoped out neighborhoods both near and far. Unfortunately, though, Martin's case would also go cold, and a connection between his case and Gosch's case was never made. So why do I even bring up these two missing children's cases? Because following the disappearance of these two boys, Anderson Erickson Dairy, the largest independently owned dairy in Iowa, began placing their pictures with information about them and their disappearance on the side of their half-gallon milk cartons. This idea would then spread to other dairy companies throughout Iowa and extended to California and Illinois. The National Child Safety Council ran with it and created a nationwide program known as the Missing Children Milk Carton Program, which would lead to nearly half of the independent dairies throughout the United States displaying images of missing children on their milk cartons by 1985. So although it was the two missing paper boys in Iowa that would technically be the first to appear on milk cartons, it was Etan Patz that actually takes credit for it.
I've always heard and thought it was like fact that Etan Patz was the first kid on a milk carton.
When we were doing our research, we both came up with like differing like research based on from different sources and whatnot. And so Rachel did a very deep dive into it.
Yeah. And I had to do a lot of research because exactly what Leah just said, we found all kinds of information about who exactly was the first. So the reason why Etan Patz, I guess, if you want to use the phrase, takes the credit for being the first to appear on milk cartons is because although Patz disappeared in 1979, his face wasn't placed on milk cartons until 1985. By the time his face was placed on milk cartons, it was the first national missing children's milk carton campaign. So unlike Gosch and Martin that had their faces placed on milk cartons locally years before, Etan Patz would have his face on milk cartons all across the United States. So it's the disappearance of Etan Patz in 1979 that really changed things. And that is the story that Caitlin and Sarah will be telling today.
Yes. So we are going to kick it off first with, something that's really hard to talk about. And we're not parents, but we cover a lot of missing children's cases. And that is the day that Etan disappeared. Etan Patz, a little bit about him. He was born on October 9th in Manhattan, 1972. He was the epitome of an adorable little boy. He had a big smile. He had shaggy, mousy brown hair. He had very dark blue eyes. In fact, to me, well, and the photos are older as well, but when you look at the photos, it's almost like they're brown. Like they're just so dark and piercing. On May 25th, like you guys had mentioned, the Patz household was a little bit chaotic, but not in a bad way. So there was a lot happening the morning that Etan went missing. It was the last day of school before Memorial Day weekend. I don't know if in this time they had that day off, but maybe it was a 3-day weekend. I don't know. But anyways, it was the last day before. And Julie, Etan's mom, she ran a daycare in her home. So they had like a loft in the top part of their home. It's redundant, but that's what was there. And she was getting ready for daycare that morning. One child, I don't know if it was a friend or what, but there was a child that had stayed the night before. I'm assuming it was someone from her daycare because this child didn't leave with Etan in the morning. And I know that it was a young child. So this child had stayed the night. She already had 2 2-year-olds for her daycare at her house. So she has a child of an unknown age, 2 2-year-olds. She has Etan, who's 6, so a pretty young child. And he needs to get ready for school. And then Etan's older sister didn't want to get out of bed. And we all know for parents, even when we're not, like, even if you're not a parent, we all know as a child what a pain in the butt that was for your parents.
You remember being a teen that wouldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
So Julie had a lot to deal with that morning. Not an ideal morning for her. But that morning, Etan, I don't know if he maybe saw how hectic it was in the home or how busy his mom was trying to like deal with everything. But he brought up, hey, mom, can I walk to school by myself? And according to Julie, he had been pushing a lot for independence lately. That's not unusual for 6-year-olds. And also it's the late 70s.
So it wasn't normal that he walked to school by himself.
No, he had never, as far as from what I could tell, he had not walked to school by himself before. So the New York Times article I read said he was practically pleading with his mom, please let me walk to school by myself. And finally she agreed, but she was hesitant. But she was like, I don't know if this is her train of thought, but from the sources I read, it seemed like she was like, I'm really busy. There's all this shit going on. Like, yes, honey, walk to school by yourself, that kind of thing.
That just made the story so much worse. That this was then maybe the first and only time. Yeah. And that the mom was hesitant about it anyway. And obviously was like a very careful, safe, attentive mother.
I covered a case similar where, and I can't remember his name, which makes me feel terrible, but he was the young boy in the Hasidic Jewish community in New York. And it was he begged his mom to let him walk home. And it was the first day his parents were like, okay, we've practiced, you can do it. And then he was kidnapped.
Yeah. And even if it wasn't the first, from what I can tell and from what I read in the New York Times, it was the first time. Even if it wasn't, though, it's clear that it wasn't something that happened regularly. It was not something that Julie was comfortable with. Like, it wasn't a norm, even if it wasn't the very, very first time. And he was only 6. But there was some bit that made her feel better, and I'm sure would make everyone feel better, is that he only had to walk 2 blocks to the bus stop. So it's not, 2 New York blocks is, I don't know, are blocks different? I don't know.
New York blocks are a little longer, but I agree. I could be wrong. I don't know. I might have just made that up.
No, I just, well,
I was going to say, no, they're the same, even though I have no clue.
Leah and I have been to New York together, and I was going to say the blocks are long, but that's only because we were like trying to get from one destination to the other in like 4 minutes or something. So it felt like they were long. But even still, regardless of how long or short a block is, as a mother, to say, yes, you can walk 2 blocks doesn't sound unreasonable.
No, it does not. And again, especially in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, like not an odd thing at all. And lots of kids were going to be at this bus stop, which I'll get into in just a second. So only 2 blocks away. So that morning, Etan put on blue pants. He must have liked the color blue. He wore a lot of it this morning. He put on a blue corduroy jacket over his t-shirt. He put on, also the blue corduroy jacket. I have no idea why, but the name tag inside said Jeff, which like cracks me up. I just think that tickles me. Yeah. Or maybe like it's a funny family who just thought that'd be funny. I don't know. That's what I like to think. But he had blue sneakers with fluorescent stripes. And to top it off, literally He was wearing a future flight captain pilot cap that was too big for him and was like over over his eyes. So he's just like an adorable little thing.
It's details like that make these cases harder.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I just picture this sweet little boy in his like pilot hat.
Yeah.
That's too big for him.
I know. So he also brought a little blue tote bag. It had elephants all over it. It was a gift from one of his mom's friends to him. He stuffed it full of his toy cars. And he also had $1, I'm assuming from his mom, to buy a soda on his way to the bus stop. So Julie, his mom, walked him outside the front door that morning. He waved goodbye. She went back inside as he started to walk away. When she went back inside, she started watching him from the window, the front window of the house. She watched him cross Wooster Street, and that's only 150 yards from the bus stop. So she was like, watch him. And then I'm assuming she left and was like, okay, well, he's getting there. He's going to stop for soda. I'm going to go back inside. Etan's bus arrived at the stop at 8:10, the normal time. That's when it usually arrived. And the normal children who were at that stop got on the bus. There was a group of children. I don't know how many, but Etan didn't get on the bus. I'm assuming as a child, you're not going to be like, where's Etan? You might for a second be like, oh, Etan's not here. Oh, well, he's probably sick. Like that's, what I would think at a bus stop. So the bus dropped the group of children off at school. And Etan's first grade teacher noticed that Etan wasn't there, of course, but the teacher did not report it to the principal of the school. Now, I'd like to say that the articles that I looked at said, but the teacher didn't report it. I don't know if that's because it wasn't required or if because it was part of the process and they just missed it. But the articles made it seem like maybe it was part of the process, but me knowing the time, like I'm assuming it wasn't.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't, or records are lost.
Yeah. So no, they said nothing. Either way, because of that, the school, besides the teacher and the classmates, didn't know Etan wasn't there. But then the parents didn't know either because it was never told to anyone in this office, the secretary, the principal, things like that. The administration.
So several hours are going by.
Yeah. And he's not at school and no one's really thinking anything of it. But that also made me think, though, when I was in, I think I was in middle school when I grew up in a very rural area in Oregon. And I don't think it was until middle school that our school started alerting parents when the child didn't show up.
Oh, wow.
It does seem like a pretty newish thing, like in our life.
Mm-hmm. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't take roll in the late 70s, 80s. Like that wouldn't be surprising for me.
I was going to say a lot of the time, unfortunately, for like new processes and procedures to be implemented, something bad has to happen first.
No, it's true. Whenever I see a rule, like I read a handbook at a job or you see like some state law, and all I can think is like someone did that to make that a law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who ruined this for the rest of us?
Yeah. You're like, who fed a moose a hamburger and now it's a law that you can't do that.
Right. Right.
I will say I used to work in France as a school teacher. And one of the jobs that I had was I would take groups of French children to London and I would translate for them, like French English. And this is the worst rule ever. You want to know how we made sure no one was missing in London? I would have 40 French kids. Okay. 2 adults, me and someone else, would put our arms making an arch together, like where you put your hands together and you're making a little tunnel. Mm-hmm. They would run through it and count.
Oh my God.
They would count up to however many kids we had. And if we were missing one, we go, okay, who do we think it is? Which one of these? That was our process. I didn't make that, by the way.
God.
That was what I was told by the company I worked for. A company I worked for, that was their process.
Sure, Sarah.
Oh my gosh,
wild,
that's
right?
crazy. Yeah. So at that point, when you realize you are missing one, it's like, which one and when did they go missing? When and where?
Yeah. They were always like smoking outside, the French.
Also, as some background, Sarah will get more into this, but when you guys brought it up, but it's not uncommon. We've covered cases from the late 80s, even the early 90s, when whether it's a child or an adult, where a family will call and report someone missing and the police will say, it hasn't been long enough. Call us tomorrow. Call us in 2 days. That went on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue with that is like a family or whoever is reporting this knows this person best, right? They're the person that lives with them, their family, whatever. So they know when it's not normal behavior. They know when something's wrong.
Right. And statistically now we know, and I don't know how long we've known this, but and that's where the show, The First 48, that name comes from. Once 48 hours have passed, you decrease the rate of solving that by like 80% or 75%. So the fact, like, that always is mind-boggling to me when cops are like, wait 48 hours, and you're like, but wait, then the window's closed. You're telling me to wait till the window is closed. Like, those two facts do not go together.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to cases of minors. How can you, a 6-year-old that's missing for any more than literally 20 minutes, you know what I mean? Like 20 minutes almost sounds extreme to not look for a child for 20 minutes.
Agreed. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of going back to what I was saying, it's nobody told them that Etan was missing, right? Because there's no process in place for that. Something bad has to happen for that to get there. So the day went on as usual for Julie. I'm assuming it was normal for her. And the afternoon time rolled in for Etan to come home. It was 3:15. That would be the time that he would come home from the bus. Now, I don't know if because she had allowed him to walk to school independently, if she expected him to walk home from the bus independently, or if she wanted to meet him at the bus stop. But regardless, he wasn't there. He wasn't at the bus stop. He wasn't at the front door. He just did not come home. Julie went to talk to the neighbors, assuming maybe Etan was with the neighborhood children. She assumed he met with the children. He got on the bus. He had a soda. Like, he did all that stuff. But no, he didn't. He didn't arrive home. So when she talked to the neighbors, they were like, no, we don't know where he's at. And they called the police. And to make a long story short, the police said, we have to wait. I mean, what more is to say about that, I suppose. But
and then truly nothing happens for years and years and years.
The thing to me that's extra disheartening about that too is it makes me think of, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Sandra Cantu case. It happened here in California. It was in Tracy, and she was a young girl that went missing, and her mom, like they lived in a trailer park community, and she asked her mom, is it okay if I just like go around the block, right? Within the trailer park. You know which one I'm talking about now.
Yes,
and she ends up, I would love to listen to it if you did, because this case, it sticks with me, because she ends up going missing because, of all people, her Sunday school teacher lives in the neighborhood, and her Sunday school teacher ended up kidnapping her, doing awful things to her and killing her. But the thing about that story and now this one that is just so disheartening to me is that these were obviously, like, they're both attentive mothers. I think it's totally reasonable, if I were to put myself in those in those shoes, that like, 2 blocks to the bus where there's going to be a bunch of other kids, go for it. Sandra Cantu, where it's this trailer park where I know literally everyone in this trailer park. In fact, your Sunday school teacher is in this trailer park. Of course, you can go skip around the block. Like, those are, you know, a lot of the time when we see these cases, it's unfortunately not always good judgment. But in both the Sandra Cantu case and now in the Etan Patz case, it's just sad that it's like, they were good parents. They didn't make bad decisions, but then something like this still happened.
And I will say, that's absolutely sad. And I'll say it's all relative too. Like, when you are, you know, a quote unquote bad parent and you have made decisions in your life that have been hard, and you hear those cases, you can also put your shoes there and say, wow, you know, I've had these struggles, these addiction struggles, or whatever it is. I don't want to like speculate what struggles people are having, but that side is haunting too, because then you have, I imagine if I were in those shoes, I would feel I was responsible. So which is worse?
Well, I can also look back at my childhood and say I walked out of my parents' sight to go to the bus stop, right? Like, it could be any one of us that happened to. Like, my parents couldn't see us when we walked down the street and around the corner to the bus stop.
Yeah. It's hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Like we touched on at the beginning, you know, before Sarah covered the disappearance of Etan Patz, we also, you know, kind of briefly talked about the fact that Patz was the first missing child placed on a milk carton nationally. So I'm going to take a moment here just to discuss the legacy of the Milk Carton Campaign. I think initially it was like a pretty good idea. While I drink very little milk myself these days, I drink it every day. When I was younger, we know that national milk consumption used to be much, much higher than it is now. In fact, the average American between the 1970s and 1980s drank milk approximately 1.5 times per day.
Yeah.
Do you drink a lot of milk?
Like every meal.
I did too.
I drink a gallon a day as a child.
Yeah.
As a child, I did, but are those averages adults too? Because that's odd.
Are you judging people's milk? You're odd.
I do think in like the 70s and 80s, that isn't that wild. Like drinking milk 1.5 times, even if you are an adult, because I just know
we had to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know in the 90s, my mom is great and she listens to all of our episodes, so she'll hear me saying this about her. But she was adamant about us drinking a glass of milk, at least 1 glass of milk every single day. So it was like, it didn't matter what was for dinner. Like if you were eating meatloaf, if you were eating spaghetti, like you also have a glass of milk with it.
So just because I think because you always hear milk carton, I always, and this might sound really dumb, I always assumed it was like the little milk cartons. Was it like, shut up.
No, it was.
So was it just the little milk cartons, or was it like the gallons of milk that people bought?
So it wasn't necessarily gallons. It was like not the little ones, but like I think they're like quarter gallons or like half gallons.
So it wasn't on every jug of milk. It was like certain containers.
Can I explain why I laughed? Because I assumed she meant the ones at elementary schools. And I was like, you dick, they're not putting those on elementary school little milk cartons to scare the children.
That would be horrible.
That's what I thought she meant, which is why I laughed.
I did mean that.
Well, okay, so 2 things to address both of what you are saying. Number one, Caitlin, it's not a bad question, because actually that is part of why the milk carton program did end up phasing out, because we no longer really make cartons that look like that anymore, right? We generally have like plastic jugs. So not a stupid question. It's in fact one of the main reasons why the Milk Carton campaign phased out. To answer what you were saying, Sarah, about like traumatizing children, that's an additional reason why the Milk Carton campaign was phased out, was because it was actually traumatic to a lot of kids. Yes.
Well, kids are drinking milk so they would see it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it was a strategy for the parents to have to do more for the kids. Pour my milk. I can't read that content.
I think you both like unintentionally touched on very important things that are going to come up very shortly. So 70s and 80s, we're drinking lots of milk. So these images are obviously, they're on the sides of these milk cartons. During this time period, they're getting a lot of exposure. But like I've already alluded to, the consumption of milk has taken a steep decline over the last few decades. Additionally, like, Caitlin already said, even the manufacturing of milk cartons is different now. They used to be paper. Now they're plastic. That made it difficult to keep the milk carton program going. Generally, though, it was found that the milk carton program was not successful. And this is most likely because statistics show that the majority of children abducted are abducted by a family member or someone that personally knows them versus a stranger, which the intent of the milk carton program was, of course, stranger danger. Mm-hmm. Despite this, we do know of one success story that came from the Milk Carton program, and that is Bonnie Lohman, who in the 1980s had been abducted by her stepfather. One day, when she and her stepfather were at the grocery store, she recognized a picture of herself on the side of a milk carton. So she asks her stepdad about it. He allowed her to buy the milk and allowed her to cut out the picture, but he told her that she had to keep it a secret. Lohman intended to keep the secret. She'd been told to do so. But one day when she was playing at a friend's house, the friend's parents spotted the cutout picture. She kept it stored in her toy box, and they spotted it in her toy box, and they immediately called authorities.
Wow.
Finally, in addition to all the other reasons that we already mentioned, one of the other primary reasons why the milk carton program phased out was because of the criticism that it received for literally being inherently racist. The majority of the children featured on the cartons were white. So that's just a bit about the milk carton campaign legacy, but I'm going to jump back over to Caitlin and Sarah now to pick up where things are at in the Etan Patz case at this point.
So Sarah kind of left off, obviously, after Etan went missing, and then really nothing happened because he wasn't found. So no one knew if he was alive. His body hadn't been found. Like nothing had really happened. So I'm going to flash forward us to 2001. In 2001, One article I read said the push should kind of come from Etan's family, which I could see why they would do this. But in 2001, Etan was legally declared deceased, even though his body had not been found.
That is sorry to interject, but that is such a huge gap in time.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like we say it nonchalantly, but also 2001. We make jokes because we hear that Gen Z calls it the 1900s. But like, yeah, we went from the 1900s to now.
Well, and I say like I can see why his parents would do this for closure, if not anything else.
Yeah.
So nothing had still happened in the case. Etan still hadn't been found. So a few years later, in 2004, a New York judge declares a man named Jose Antonio Ramos, longtime suspect and known child molester, and I'll talk more about him, guilty of Etan's murder in a civil suit. So Jose had not been arrested by the police or found guilty in a court of law except a civil suit.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time, Jose was already behind bars for molesting an 8-year-old boy, where he was to stay in prison until 2012. So that's kind of happening on the side. So Etan's case had gone cold. It had kind of been dropped. Other than him being declared dead and the civil suit, nothing had really happened. But in 2010, Manhattan was getting a new DA. A man named Cyrus Vance was up for election. He was trying to become the DA. So Etan's father went to Cyrus and was like, hey, I will support you. I will get people to vote for you, but will you please open my son's case? And Cyrus Vance was like, yep, if I get elected, I will reopen the case. I will take a look. And that's how it got reopened. Cyrus Vance became the Manhattan DA, and he reopened the Etan Patz case.
That is so great. I am such a awful, cynical person that I just assumed that was like a campaign promise that wouldn't be followed through on.
No, he opened it back up. He got police to take a look. And so he took over after former DA Robert Morgenthau, who's retired. Morgenthau Jose had been a longtime suspect. And again, I'll talk more about that, but he had refused to prosecute because he didn't think that there was enough evidence. Former federal prosecutor Stuart Raboy fought for 20 years to resolve the case, and he suspected Jose early on, as far back as 1985, but again, had never had enough to prosecute. So who is Jose Ramos? Why is he suspected? So Jose is suspected in Etan's case when, in 1982, some children who live in the Bronx, which is where Jose lives, come forward to police and they accuse Jose of trying to lure them inside a drain pipe. And so I'm imagining it's
it's like it.
Yes. Yeah. So I imagine like it's got to be, I pictured it too. It's got to be one of those huge drain pipes. So Jose is trying to lure these children into the drain pipe, likely to abuse them.
Now, I will say I stopped my research at end of disappearance, so I have no idea what's going on, and I'm horrified.
Yeah. That's horrible.
So please go to investigate said drain pipe. And so Jose must have used this before, because inside they actually find photos of Jose with young boys. One of the young boys resembles Etan, but it's not enough. They can't prove anything. Jose's not charged, and he takes off and disappears. He moves, he leaves New York, he takes off.
Apparently it's legal to just like hang out in a drain pipe with strange pictures of children. So everyone mark that on your calendars.
Well, he does do jail time for molesting other boys, but at one point, police kind of lose track of him and he disappears. Disappears as in like he moves somewhere else. The next boy hears is that Jose's in prison in Pennsylvania for child molestation. So he does do jail time on and off for molesting other children, which again makes him a great prime suspect. Jose is brought to New York at some point and questioned about Etan's case. And Jose gives what is now called a, quote, 90% confession. So during the interrogation, Jose is asked, quote, how many times did you have sex with Etan Patz? Jose allegedly froze and then said, I'll tell you everything. He then confesses that on the day Etan disappeared, he did bring a boy who he's 90% sure is a boy on TV, which would be Etan, to bring him to his apartment to molest him. But he doesn't know Etan's name. He doesn't know anything about him. That's why it's called the 90% confession. He goes, yeah, on that day, I did bring a boy. He kind of looked like the boy on TV. But so it's just this weird 90% confession where he's not really sure. Then he says, after I didn't kill him, I had sex with him, which AKA rape, and then I put him on the subway. What? He never confesses to killing Etan or anyone else. He does confess to child molestation, child abuse, rape, but he doesn't confess to murder.
That's
so there
horrible.
is kind of one other person of interest. Not really. It's a man who crossed paths with Jose, Othniel Miller. And this is a carpenter and handyman. And I say he's never listed as a suspect or a person of interest, but he is a handyman who works in this basement, and that basement is eventually searched in the 2000s because it turns out Jose worked for him. It also turns out that Jose had a friend, maybe a girlfriend, who worked for the Patz family, that his girlfriend or friend worked. So there's a lot of connections with Jose. So in the 2000s, I believe around 2010, so I'm kind of jumping over time. So this basement is searched, and this was the basement that Othniel Miller worked in, but Jose worked for him. Police find out that this basement was never searched back in the 70s or 80s, and since then it's gotten new concrete, so they dig everything up, but nothing is found. Etan's body's not found, nothing is found. So this is going to get a little crazy, more crazy, so bear with me.
Because it's not yet.
Oh, it's going to take a turn that you're not going to expect. And I didn't expect it. I'll admit I thought I knew this case, but I didn't. So just to back up and kind of go over what I've been through. Jose became a suspect at least in 1985, 1989. He's a confessed child molester. His girlfriend or friend babysat for the Patzes. We know that in 2004, a civil court found him guilty. In 2012, a basement he worked in was searched. All of that points to him as being the main suspect.
Yeah.
So you'd think that he might have done it.
Sure.
But also in 2012, another suspect emerges. 51-year-old Pedro Hernandez, who had worked at a bodega near the Patz home back in the 70s, confesses to police that he killed Etan. He would have been 18 at the time Etan was murdered. So Jose is looked at for years, like decades, as a suspect. All of a sudden in 2012, a 51-year-old man goes to police and says, "It was me. I killed Etan Patz." So Pedro was arrested on May 24th, 2012. I know, your head's exploding. Pedro told police that he lured Etan to the basement of the bodega he worked at by promising him a soda, which would tell me Etan's walking to the bus stop, like Sarah mentioned, and Pedro at this bodega is like, "Hey, kid, I'll give you soda. Follow me."
And what's sad is he already had it in his heart that he was getting a soda on the way to the bus.
Right,
so he's like, freaking sweet. Like, now I get this soda for free.
And it's not like a quote unquote old man. It's like an 18, like,
no, he's
18,
a cool,
right?
You know, when you're young, you're like, what? These are cool ages. Like 18's a cool age.
Pedro tells police that once Etan was down the stairs, he choked him to death and then placed his body in a bag, took the bag a block and a half away, and just set it next to some trash on the street. Which makes sense in a really terrible way of why they never found his body, if we believe this confession, because if that was picked up and taken to a landfill, who knows where it is, which is awful. So Pedro's confession isn't his first. It's only his first to police. As far back as 1981, a few years after Etan went missing, Pedro had actually been telling others, a few family members, that he had, quote, done a bad thing and killed a child in New York. But he never said which child, and no one had ever told police until 2012. So all investigators have is his confession. They have no way to physically verify his claim, especially without a body. But police and investigators did say they believed his confession. They said he seemed remorseful. He knew some details. They thought it was a real confession and that they had the guy. The police commissioner released a statement and said it was credible, quote, due to the fact that he'd told this story to others in the past and specifically of what he said in the confession. So Pedro Hernandez was charged with second-degree murder and first degree. On November 14th, 2012, all of the mostly circumstantial but the confession was told to the grand jury, and the grand jury chose to indict him, meaning a trial could begin. So now I'll get into the trial. So there The defense and the prosecution are preparing for trial. Pedro's attorneys are saying, hey, Jose was a suspect. We think he still did it. We want Jose to be a witness for the defense because we're going to point the finger at him. So the defense actually calls in Jose as a witness.
Oh my God.
It's also brought up that Pedro has a history of sexual abuse of a family member. Someone else speaks up. And he also has a history of drug abuse and domestic violence. Both his first wife and ex-wife and his current wife speak up and are willing to testify about his domestic violence tendencies. As the trial prep goes into September of 2014, so trial hasn't yet begun, the confession tape is brought up by the defense. They don't want it in trial. Obviously, they wouldn't. The defense paints Pedro as a man with a very low IQ. They say he has mental illness and that he was steered into a confession, that he didn't do it. He was kind of tricked into confessing. The judge, however, says that confession is going to be used in evidence. The judge does also rule that jurors will not hear Jose Ramos testify, that that's not admissible. So they allow the confession. They don't allow Jose to be called.
Yeah. I was feeling like that was a very sticky situation that I wasn't sure was going to actually pan out.
Well, it's his confession against his confession.
Exactly.
So the trial finally begins on January 5th, 2015. Like I mentioned, Pedro's ex-wife testifies, among others, to talk about his violent state. And she, along with others, say, yeah, he talked about being a killer, talked about doing bad things to a child. She also told the court, she being his ex-wife, that when she was going through their things, she found a photo of a child who looked like Etan in Pedro's things. Etan's mother testified twice. In closing arguments, the defense argued the confession was fiction, even though Pedro had never retracted. They just pushed that he was tricked into it. He has mental illness. He has a really low IQ. He didn't do this. On May 5th, 2015, the jury was deadlocked. One juror refused to find him guilty. They were told to keep deliberating. By May 8th, 2015, a mistrial was declared. The prosecution at that point gets to decide what to do, and they decided to go for a second trial. So a second trial began. One juror said they watched the confession tape 100 times, which I know I say like I did that 100 times. So I don't know how exaggerating that was, but
I'm sure they watched it over, trying to find every minute detail. So the second jury watched the confession tape over and over and over. The second jury at the second trial deliberated for 9 days, and then Pedro Hernandez was found guilty. He was sentenced to 25 to life at the age of 56. Pedro, through his lawyer, says he's innocent. Just kind of a random fact, that original juror who caused the mistrial still says he thinks Pedro's innocent, that Jose did it. But in the eyes of the law, the case is closed and Pedro Hernandez is guilty. That's what's mind-blowing to me, because I thought I knew this case, but it goes to like, Jose did it. Jose clearly did it. Jose clearly did it. Oh, Pedro did it randomly. And it's very bizarre. What do you think?
I don't know.
I was going to say that, to be honest, that's a very dissatisfying answer. Because so what is the evidence? I mean, of course, we only know as much as we know, right? We weren't sitting there as jurors. So we don't have as much evidence as they do. But what is the evidence that Pedro did it? He was abusive to family members.
The confession is his confession. That is the evidence. So it's really up to whether you believe his confession.
Right. God, that's really dissatisfying. I don't actually know what to say or what to think about that.
I'm not going to lie. When I started researching and all these articles are about Jose, and I kind of was just glazing over it. And then I was like, killer found guilty. And I just, before I read it all, I assumed it was Jose. And then it was like Pedro. And I was like, wait, who's Pedro? Like it kind of, it's very bizarre.
Yeah. Did you in any of your research see anything about the family's response to Pedro being found guilty, if they were satisfied with it, if family was still alive and around to have a response?
Yeah, they were. His parents said they were happy to see justice and, they felt justice has been served. I think they had a lot of faith in law enforcement and in the prosecutors, and they just believed that they had done their job and that the right man was behind bars.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Dissatisfying is a good word. That's exactly how I felt about this case.
Well, and the thing that sticks out to me in cases like this, where it feels dissatisfying, to me, sometimes that dissatisfaction comes from the fact that there is a reasonable doubt. And also you said one thing, which I don't know if you said that sometimes we say things just in passing as a way to get to another thing, and we don't actually mean that fully. But you had said that one person was in the first trial, one person was just like gung-ho that he did not do it.
Yeah.
And they said, continue to deliberate. To me, that's fascinating because that person has said their piece. Like, do we have to continue deliberation at that point? Like, are you saying, no, we want a different answer? Because that's not how the justice system works.
In the first trial, I did see that. So in the first trial, the jury came back to the judge and said, we can't agree. The judge sent that back 2 more times. So it wasn't until the 3rd time that the jury came together and said, we cannot agree, that he said, okay, mistrial. So it did take 3 times.
I imagine the judge, like, not to compare him to Trump, but I imagine him like a notepad. He's like, 1, go back, and he has to like get to 3 before he'll like let them.
I think what's hard to wrap my mind around is Jose is clearly human garbage. He is a child molester. He's been in prison for that.
You want it to be him, right? I mean, not really, but like he is clearly like a very, very disturbed person who has done, and an obvious suspect. Yes.
But it also doesn't make him him. And Caitlin and I talk a lot about this on Luminol. Like, I'm not saying someone who molests or rapes or does burglary. It's something that's considered a smaller crime than murder in big quotes. I'm not saying that that's not bad, but it does not mean that they kidnapped and murdered someone. We can't put the two together. They're completely different scenarios, even though they fit better than some other things might. So while he seems like the right, I almost said candidate, but like the right suspect for this case or the right perpetrator, it doesn't mean he is.
The other thing to go back to too, it appeared in all of my research that Pedro came to the cops on his own. The police knew about him. Like, his name was, he worked in the area. He worked bodega right down the street. He hadn't been questioned before, even though some workers at the bodega had, police knew he was in the area, but he seemingly came to police on his own and seemed remorseful. That makes me believe his confession a little more. It's a hard one though. It's a very dissatisfying conclusion. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us regardless.
we always happy
to help.
I mean, you guys have heard the podcast, but we like to end on, I hope your day isn't too bad. Like, what else do you say after that?
Well, we can end on a slightly happier note, because the last little bit that we're going to go into is the legacy that this case left behind. So we've already touched on some of the legacy prior about this particular case, but I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper. So as we know, Pate's disappearance was the first national milk carton campaign, as Rachel said earlier, and inspired similar campaigns throughout the 80s. But by the late 1980s, the milk carton program would phase out. Although no longer popular at the time, we do know that the Bish family used the Milk Carton Avenue as late as 2000 in search of a 16-year-old Molly Bish, not necessarily because of the success of the milk carton program, but just ultimately they were so desperate to find her that they sought any and all avenues possible. So that was really the last and most recent case we can see of a milk carton program taking place for a missing person. Pate's case also led former President Ronald Reagan to declare May 25th, which is my wedding anniversary, National Missing Children's Day in 1983. And while this national recognition is so important and Etan Patz' life was so important and had so much value, we also had to drop in another reminder that missing white people tend to garner more national attention than when people of color go missing. It can't be forgotten that around the same time that Patz went missing, the years of 1979 to 1981, nearly 30 Black children went missing and were later found murdered in Atlanta, Georgia, for example.
Yeah, and we've seen that recently, not to take away from Gabby, I'm going to say her last name wrong.
Petito,
yeah. That's the case we should look at, and we need to find Brian, but it's brought up there's also people of color missing who have gone missing in similar fashions, and we're not talking about them.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I almost wanted to mention that as well, but we actually just mentioned her in our last episode, and said the exact same thing. Like, yes, her life matters. Like, it totally matters. And I'm glad there's attention being drawn to it. But there were also, how many dozens of Indigenous women who went missing in that area in the last how many years?
Yeah. There have been over 700 Indigenous women that have gone missing from the Wyoming area in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And what's hard, Sarah and I talked about this recently on an episode. We had, was it Montana or Wyoming?
It was Montana.
Yeah, we picked a random state as our theme. And I immediately was like, it's Montana. I know there's a large Indigenous population. I want to find a case to bring attention to. And so I start specifically searching that type of thing. And it actually made me, I remember texting Sarah because I got really angry. Like, angry is the only word I can think of, because I found all these articles that
the lack of information.
Yeah, it was like, oh, missing Indigenous women at an all-time high. There's hundreds of missing Indigenous women, but there was no name. There was no information on a specific case. It was like, oh, this woman, Sally Sue, went missing and here's her story. Oh, and there's 300 missing people of color, but there was no information, and it made me so angry.
That's something we find a lot in Latin America too. We try to cover cases all around the world on like a cadence, and that's something we found in Mexico specifically, but Latin America in general is, you'll find femicide or Turkey or somewhere where femicide is a huge issue, which it is worldwide. It's not a huge issue in a particular country and not somewhere else. But we'll find, wow, there's hundreds of thousands of women being killed. There's Melody, there's Maria, there's this person. And that's it. That's all you get, a first name. Like, good luck covering their case.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I've used the word disheartening a couple times in this episode, but that right there is super disheartening.
Yeah. Well, the Patz case also played a role in the founding of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. More generally, Patz's case also, along with another 6-year-old boy named Adam Walsh, who was abducted from Florida, a Florida shopping mall 2 years after Patz's disappearance. These two cases attracted national media attention and really began shifting the tides of how much freedom and independence children in the U.S. were and now are given. We kind of talked about, like, parents seem like, caring, doting parents, but it was the time. It wasn't looked at as it is now, to let your kid walk 2 blocks to the bus stop. Whereas now that would be like so frowned upon, just because cases like these brought national attention to missing children and the dangers of that type of thing. Like, nowadays, the idea of a 6-year-old walking themselves to school in New York City sounds kind of outrageous. But it's because of these cases. We have to remember that. The last legacy I'd like to touch on is that of the Amber Alert system, which is kind of like a mutant Android second cousin to the Milk Carton Campaigns of the past. So here in the US, we have Amber Alerts for any of our international listeners, which are emergency messages issued when a law enforcement agency determines that a child, and this is a direct quote, has been abducted and is in imminent danger. They are broadcasted through radio, TV, road signs, and now even cell phone push notifications. Amber technically stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response, but it was created as a legacy to 9-year-old Amber Hagerman, who was kidnapped and eventually murdered in 1996. I did a little extra research for some data on the success rate of the Amber Alert systems and programs nationwide. And according to CNN, in 2018, 155 cases of the 161 issued alerts resulted in recovery, which is a 96% success rate.
Wow.
And according to KCRA, which is a local news station here in Sacramento, the California Amber Alert program had a 96.7% success rate. in 2016. So pretty close to a above 95% success rate across the board. But something we do have to remember is that not all missing children cases are reported, and not all meet the quote requirements necessary to issue Amber Alerts, and not all garner the type of media, again, that this case and other cases like it have garnered. So to really sum up the Patz case, I think president and co-founder of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Ernie Allen, said it perfectly. He said, America has fundamentally changed the way it searches for missing children. Much of the legacy of Etan Patz is that more children come home safely today than at any time in American history. See, a little happier note.
Yeah. That is a better note to end on. I don't know. It's always hard to end on murder and disappearances. Like, that's never easy. So
yeah,
at least there's something good. Things got better.
Yeah, we learned a lot from you guys. So I appreciate your in-depth research.
And thank you for sharing the story. Yeah, like Rachel, I briefly, saw a summary of the case, but it's nice to know more of the details, especially about the trial. I think is interesting.
Yeah, thank you both so much. Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode. Caitlin and Sarah, do you all want to share again where our listeners can find you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple, Stitcher,
Spotify,
Podbeans. They're all I don't know.
Podbeans?
That's one, right? Or Podbean. I don't know.
I'm thinking of podcast.
No, it sounds like it's a cat's hands were, or paws were little beans. Anyways, you can find us at all those places. The one place that we always point people to is our Instagram page at Luminol Pod, because that's pretty much the only place we go.
We're on Twitter, but we only tweet people back. We're not good at tweeting.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't realize we're the exact same. We have a Twitter.
I'm like Eugene. We're like Eugene Levy on Schitt's Creek when he makes those coasters and he's like, follow us on Twitter. That's us. We don't know how to use it or what to tweet. So
Instagram at Luminol Pod is where you can find us, and we'll point you in all the directions there. The link in our bio has things.
Yeah. Perfect. So all sources used to put together this episode can be found on our website at #history-pod.com. That's also where you can find our merch, more about us, listen to other episodes, and a lot more.
Yes. So be sure to subscribe to us and to Luminol Podcast on whatever podcast platform you use. Share about us with your family and friends. And then we would love it so much if you would give all of us a rate and review.
Yeah. And be sure to check us out on our socials. You can find us on Instagram at #history_podcast and on TikTok at #history.
It exists. It's there.
It exists.
We have an account. Finally, we would love it so much if you would come join us on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. You get access to some behind the scenes content, weekly #hangout episodes, and automatic 15% off all of our merchandise. And we mail you cute cards and stickers.
Yeah. And that's a wrap on season 8. It has come.
Oh my God.
It is now gone, much like my mind. Be sure to watch out on our Instagram for any announcements about when we will be returning for season 9.
And be sure to watch our Instagram, because we have the opportunity to guest on a number of podcasts ourselves over the next month. And we'll be dropping those announcements on Instagram as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Luminol.
The Gosh father went to look for Johnny and found. What did I just say?
We all were on the same page.
The Godfather. You're like the Gosh father.
It's the Gosh father.
I was like, what did I say?
Oh my gosh. It sounds like a very, very conservative person not wanting to say the Lord's name in vain while talking about...
You know that movie my son likes, The Gosh Father?
I love that too, that I wrote this and reread my notes 700 times and didn't catch that. So
you had to
there's
say it
that.
out loud for us to hear it, though.
That was worth it.
I'm
Sorry. Your cat is like
Sorry.
effing shit up. Like it's.
It's so funny. Before you came on, he was like doing shit up here, and Rachel was like, "Wow, he's like very, very active." I was like, "Yeah, most cats aren't this active until they're 3 years old, so he's really ahead of
like
schedule."
A really mature cat for his age. Like,
I have a very gifted child.
you need
an honor sticker on the back of my car.
You need my cat's an honor student.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Idea.
Amazing.
Anyway, so, well, I'm going to give all of your listeners a little secret tidbit is that the first episode of their next season is in Scotland, and they're doing penicillins. Now try to.
I was like, what does she know that I don't know right now?
I was like, what did you tell her that you didn't tell me?
Now your listeners, someone's going to not realize that was a joke, and someone's going to be mad at you. So enjoy that gift.
Yeah, thank you.